Welcome to the Farzy Show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show, presented by Destination Retirement, DestinationRetirement.com. Live from the Steven Singer Studios, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I had a wonderful weekend. I'm a little hoarse today. If you caught the show last week, you heard me talking about whether or not I was going to be cooking dinner for 30 people coming over my house for my, I don't know if I invented the phrase cousin-in-law, but I know whenever I say it, people say I never heard cousin-in-law. But anyway, my cousin-in-law, Sarah, graduated from Jefferson here in Philadelphia from nursing school. My wife and I are the only Philly-based family in the city proper, so we became the hub for the big dinner party night, which was our pleasure, and we volunteered to do it. I ended up making pasta for like 30 people at my house and other fine appetizers, whatnot. I had a phenomenal time. We partied over the weekend, and then yesterday my nephew Luke celebrated his first Holy Communion, so it was a busy weekend. For me personally, for my wife's family, and for my family as well. So it was a long, long weekend. But all the while, ladies and gentlemen, while I'm living it up, the Phillies are out in Los Angeles living the big boy lifestyle. How about that? Taking 3 of 4 from the LA Dodgers. And what did we do when we mapped out this series, when we mapped out the next 10-plus games with the Phillies, what they got going on, going from the Dodgers, and now they got to go play the San Diego Padres starting tomorrow. How is it going to go? And how is this road trip going to go for Joe Girardi and the Philadelphia Phillies? Well, so far, so good. They take 3 of 4 from the Dodgers, and then in total, they take 6 of 8 from the Dodgers and the Mariners on this West Coast trip. The vibes are good right now surrounding the Phillies. What sucks is being in line for a sweep going into the 9th inning, and Corey Knebel forgets how to pitch with 2 outs in the 9th inning. What was that? He allows a 2-out triple. Then he walks Taylor yesterday, and then he allows what was the walk-off 2-run double to Lux to end the ball game. That was the kick in the crotch, so to speak, of all the great vibes that you guys created throughout the weekend. And it's still great, still happy, still very positive, very happy with the way the last, like I said, 6 of the last 8 games have gone overall. They have shocked me by winning this series, not splitting, not stealing a game, not barely avoiding a sweep, but taking 3 of 4 from the Dodgers. They have pleasantly surprised me, and I think they pleasantly surprised everybody. And the biggest thing I can take away from this weekend, is that Bryce Harper is incredible. He played these last 3 games. He was off yesterday, but he played the last 3 games prior to that, the 3 wins of this series, like the NL MVP. He was unbelievable. You look at what he did in game 1 of this series. He goes out 2 for 4, 3 RBI. I'm just getting warmed up. Oh, he also had a home run. Comes out in game 2, another home run, this time 3 for 4 in that game. 8 home runs on the season now. Then game 3, he goes out 3 for 4 with his 9th home run of the season. This is a guy that wants to pull a team through a really bad, lackluster, I'll say, at worst, lackluster start to the season. With all the pots and pans and all the hype, from myself included and other media members and fans, talking about how this lineup was absolutely going to rake, Bryce Harper got him going with an incredible 3-game set of this 4-game series against the Dodgers, and he has really started to smash the baseball. Nick Castellanos looks like he got a little bit of a stroke back. Kyle Schwarber had a couple of home runs over the weekend. He gets dropped down in the order. Rhys Hoskins goes out there with a solid performance. Like, this team, for me, has started to put it together. And when they went out on this road trip, when we talked about what a road trip could do, if you were hoping for the best, oh, you go on a road trip and sometimes getting away from South Philly, sometimes getting away from your home ballpark, especially with a new team. Sometimes a nice long road trip can help everybody get to know each other. And everybody use the very famous baseball word, gel. Everybody could gel. The chemistry of this team can all finally come together. So far, that's exactly what has happened. It's a sight for sore eyes, and it couldn't happen at a better time with the Sixers being bounced out of the playoffs a little bit earlier than some of us anticipated. But the Phillies are taking full advantage of this. After Bryce Harper and what he was able to do over this weekend, I know it was a losing effort for the Phillies, not for this man, but for the Phillies. Aaron Nola looked on point yesterday. I have talked many times about Aaron Nola getting back to that guy that could go 7 innings, allow no more than 2 runs for about an entire month, as he could put stretches like that together, as we have seen him do in different parts of his career. Not just that one great year where he was a Cy Young candidate, but other points in his career as well. And yesterday, what did he do? Went out there, 7 innings, 2 runs. Got some great defensive help. Camargo had a great diving play to start a double play in the ballgame yesterday. Bryson Stott had a 20-foot vertical, whatever that was yesterday. That was an incredible catch. He had it short. That was wild. Great defensive plays behind Aaron Nola, no doubt about that. But together as a pitcher, he also comes up with 9 Ks. That's a guy that we have seen before. And I am hoping that the struggles, and hey, look, hoping it goes a long way with the Phillies apparently, but I'm hoping that Aaron Nola has put those struggles together because he looked like his old self. He looked like, I don't even want to say his old self because he's so inconsistent. He looked like the version of Aaron Nola that we always root to see. We always hope to see whenever he takes the mound. And it's looked like that now for his last couple of starts. So it was great to see him go out there with that type of effort yesterday and have that kind of defense backing him up. I have said many times, and you don't see this, folks. You don't see this. But I have to mention it. Other than Corey Knebel's blown save, and Yuri's Familia, whatever that was over the weekend, not looking so hot either, especially in the 12-10 game. But I'm watching this game yesterday, and Odubel Herrera, you know Odubel Herrera is. And I'm still really waiting for Mickey Moniak to hopefully take that center field spot because Odubel Herrera continues to give us evidence that he is the dumbest baseball player we have ever seen. If you were to tell me, hey, guess what baseball player swung, Guess what baseball player swung at a pitch between his legs? I'd say, wait, I'm sorry. The pitch was what? The pitch was between this baseball player's legs. You could take any baseball player currently playing in Major League Baseball. Who was it? Odubel Herrera would be my first guess. And yesterday, in the 7th inning, 2-1 count, gets a pitch, low and inside, of course, and Odubel Herrera swings over top of it as the ball goes between his legs. I've told you for the vast majority of my life, I have been a baseball first guy. I'll watch any team, any game. I just love watching baseball. I have talked to people that are 3 times my age. They have never seen that before, where a player swings at a pitch between his legs. And before Odubel Herrera, I think he flew out in that at-bat. Yeah. Before he flew out in that at-bat on that 2-1 pitch, he made it a 2-2 count by swinging at a pitch between his legs. If you haven't seen it, it is on the internet. Unbelievable. This guy is a Major League Baseball player. And I don't know where he goes sometimes. Like if you've ever yelled at a pet, like a dog will like look confused and do that turned head thing. Odubel Herrera does that a lot, that turned head thing where it's just like, I don't know where I am. And we're looking at him, and you know what? We're like that same dog. What? We're utterly confused. Like, you have a ball in your hand. I want you to throw the ball, but you're not throwing it. Why not? Odubel Herrera is in that state all the time. Please, somebody just take this center field position from the Philadelphia Phillies, and we can all be better people afterwards. We can all live our lives and be happy. But that's not going to be it's not going to be the case, I guess, for a while until I hope Mickey Moniak comes back and hey, picks up from where he left off in the spring. I think he actually starts his live batting practice, live game situations today. So fingers crossed, Mickey Moniak. Hopefully it won't be too long before you're patrolling center field. But the Phillies get their series started against the Padres after this great series against the Dodgers. Still winning 3-4. Makes you feel good. Certainly ends on a down note. but he had a lot of great moments in the series. Ranger Suarez had a great start in Game 3. He went, what did he go there? 7 innings, 3 runs, so that was nice. And Kyle Gibson got absolutely rocked in Game 2 in that 3rd inning. So Phillies were able to still overcome that in that 12-10 extra inning game. So that was nice to see. But overall, the positive vibes surrounding the Phillies right now are great. Joe Girardi talked about getting out on the road. They got out on the road, and things have gone their way. So this might be that breaking point, that turning point, might be a better way to say it, on the season. They got off to a slow start, left a lot to be desired. The lineup really wasn't doing what we thought the lineup was going to do. They got no hit. Then they take a road trip. And good things happen here on this road trip so far. And hopefully Bryce Harper will continue to get more healthy after getting that shot, of course. And when he does come back to the lineup, hopefully he just continues to mash as well as he has been every ounce of the NL MVP recently for the Phillies, which has been wonderful to see. And also a nice thing, Bryson Stott gets called back up. Comes back up to the majors with the injury to Didi Gregorius. Comes up, gets a couple of RBIs for you on yesterday as well. So that was nice to see for Bryson Stott to drive in a couple of runs. So that was great. Or excuse me, on Friday, he came up with a couple of RBIs. So many good games with the Phillies. It's getting confusing, which is a good problem to have. So that was the Phillies weekend, which was wonderful, which was wild, which was great. But Friday night or Friday afternoon, the Sixers come out and address the media, and Daryl Morey speaks, and everyone speaks, and different players speak, and I found it very interesting that when Daryl Morey was asked about Doc Rivers' future, yes, will Doc Rivers be back? Yes. My first thought was, I don't believe you. My second thought was, how's that going to work? Whenever somebody is speaking at a press conference, I always take it as, and I think everyone should always take it as, right now, this is the way it is. Right now, like at this point in time, at this exact point in time where I'm addressing the media, if I'm Daryl Morey or I'm Doc Rivers, right now, everything that's said in the press conference, I always put it under the caveat of right now. Because you can walk off that podium and you get a call from somebody, hey, we're interested in this, that, or the other. And, oh, well, things have changed, and I'm not going to hold a press conference again just to talk about how things have changed right now with this possibility out there. But Daryl Morey said that Doc Rivers will be back. 1, I don't want him back. 2, I don't think the team wants him back, in all honesty. And I played for you guys on Friday the cuts of James Harden talking about how he was questioning this offense. And when he was questioned point blank about the coaching, he said, next question. Whenever a player passes up on an opportunity to talk about a coach, it's not a good thing. Like, that's not a positive, because it falls under the old rule, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. James Harden was saying, well, he was saying that he didn't have anything nice to say, basically. So Doc Rivers is going to be back, according to Daryl Morey. I think that is the most likely scenario now that he said, don't get me wrong, but I still don't think it's an ironclad guarantee that he is going to be back. And Woj put it in perspective on ESPN. Here's what he had to say after Daryl Morey addressed the media on Friday. Here's how Woj put it into perspective when it comes to Doc Rivers' future in Philadelphia.
Greeny, here's what you need to watch now in the next few days in Philadelphia. When Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey, Elton Brand and their front office, perhaps even ownership, when they start to sit down and talk about what is it going to look like moving forward, what are the changes they have to make, whether it's personnel, style of play, are they all on the same page? Do they all see the future? Are they aligned in that way? And I think that's going to be really important for Doc Rivers in Philadelphia. He's got 3 years left on his deal, around $8 million a season, certainly a lot left on his contract. And listen, the Lakers loom out there. They have slow played their coaching search. You know, they've waited to see, is there an established veteran, championship perhaps even coach available to them out in the marketplace? It's not Nick Nurse. It's not Quinn Snyder. And so I think they'll continue to wait and see what happens in Philadelphia with Doc Rivers. I think in a perfect world, Doc Rivers stays in Philadelphia. He wants to win a championship. That's a team that is still closer to that than perhaps, say, what the Lakers roster would suggest right now. But I think the conversations in Philly now with Doc and the team, I think they're going to be important. I think there was never really any question whether Philly wanted him back. The idea that he would get fired, I think, was far-fetched.
Okay, far-fetched, maybe, especially considering the money. But if there is some kind of deal to be made, if the Sixers can get alleviated of the contract by giving them to the Lakers somehow, and the Lakers take that over, yeah, I think they're going to pull the trigger on that, mostly because I think the Sixers would want to do it, and I think the Doc Rivers would also want to do it, because bottom line is you don't want to be where you're not wanted. And if the players don't want you, that's difficult to coach. But the interesting point that Woj makes there is that Doc still wants to win another championship. And the Sixers are a hell of a lot closer to doing that here in Philadelphia than the Lakers are doing that in Los Angeles. So that's a huge sticking point for Doc Rivers. But bottom line is, I think Doc would rather be in Los Angeles. So that's location, location, location. And it's not Philadelphia. Meaning it's not James Harden questioning your coaching tactics. It's not Joel Embiid saying after games, maybe you should match my minutes with Giannis Antetokounmpo. How about that for a suggestion? And it's not maybe some of the problems that have come up here in Philadelphia in years past. Now, Ben Simmons isn't here anymore. That's, of course, the biggest problem, or was the biggest problem. But James Harden could become a much bigger headache. And guess what? This team's going to change over again. I think they're going to have a different starting five going into next year. I think they are going to make a pursuit for Bradley Beal to come here to Philadelphia. So now you're going to be changing this locker room over again. And even if it's not Bradley Beal, you're going to be reconstructing the bench. You'll probably still get another member of the starting five. If it's Matisse Thybulle, if he's not a trade bait somewhere, Danny Green looks like he, of course, won't be back with his injury. God bless him, man. That's horrible news about basically what could be most likely a career-ending injury for a guy at 35 years old like Danny Green. But the Sixers are going to look a little bit different. Do you want to go through another remake of this team? If they do proceed, as they most likely will with Doc Rivers as their head coach, James Harden here, Joel Embiid, and some other pieces, then maybe one of the things Doc Rivers is looking forward to is a complete offseason, knowing when you actually report for training camp, you're going to have a team that you knew on paper already for a considerable amount of time. You've had time to plan how you're going to use all these guys, and you have a considerable amount of time to prep for the entire season, an entire offseason, so to speak, to prep for the rest of the season, for a full season. That's something that Doc Rivers could be looking forward to in terms of trying to figure it out. I personally won't be looking forward to it. I don't have a lot of confidence in Doc Rivers. I'll have a lot more confidence in this team when I see the changes Daryl Morey will be making in the future. I will tell you right now, and I've been on this for a while, I ain't that confident in James Harden. I am not one of the people that says, it's a hamstring, he's fine. I think there has to be a major change to the mindset of James Harden in the future for him to be a huge contributor to the success of this team. And the example I have used in the past has been Chris Paul. Can't use Chris Paul right now after that loss with the Suns getting bounced out to the Dallas Mavericks. If you didn't see the game yesterday or follow anything yesterday, all you really need to know is that Luka Doncic had as many points as the Phoenix Suns at halftime. It was something like 27 at halftime. That's how it went for the Suns yesterday in their Game 7. The favored Suns, by the way, against the Dallas Mavericks. That's what you need to know about that game. But things didn't exactly go their way, and Chris Paul didn't play great, and he looked like somebody took away his Allstate, or not Allstate commercials. What is it? State Farm commercials. He did not look like he was in good shape after that game. But James Harden, I think, needs to develop that mindset that's more along the lines of a Chris Paul, where it's facilitate first, shoot second, drive distant third, get some rebounds, instant fast breaks. That's how I think James Harden has to think. The blow-by thing, the beating guys off the dribble thing, no. The step-back jumper, I think he could do all day. The step-back three, all day, I think he could always do that. That's, I think, still very much in his arsenal. But the forcing situations, I have said time and time again, like a broken record, those need to go out the window for James Harden. It'll be up to James Harden ultimately if he's able to make that transition in his game, that transition mentally and his approach to the game, if he can make that change. That's what I want to see. That's what I need to see from James Harden. But ultimately, it'll also come down to Daryl Morey and what he's willing to do to try to make deals to make this team a lot better than what walked off the court. Now, coming up as a guest today is Marcus Hayes of the Inquirer. And if you haven't read this story, and I'm putting up the tweet that he put out there regarding Joel Embiid, and the tweet says, Joel Embiid's come a long way. He's still got a long way to go if the Sixers are ever going to win a title. Now, I have said before that I thought all the questions about Joel Embiid's toughness should go out the window because the man played with the torn ligaments. He came off concussion. He played with a broken orbital bone, fractural orbital bone, again, also known as a broken face to the lay people, such as myself. And I thought this guy is tough as nails. And that's leadership. Going out there, playing hurt, playing banged up, and trying to motivate your team by just being out there because you believe they can win a championship. I thought all the questions of toughness and poor leadership were out the window. Enter Marcus Hayes. And I read this article, and I texted Marcus immediately, we need to talk. I said, when can you come on? So we talked last night, and Marcus goes more down the alley of what Charles Barkley had to say on TNT after the Sixers laid down in games 5 and 6 of that series against the Miami Heat. And although I thought all the toughness questions were out the window and leadership questions were out the window, they're very much alive and well. Sir Charles, Shaq, Marcus Hayes goes along with what they had to say and gives a supporting argument as to why. He goes more along the lines that Joel Embiid is something that J.J. Redick has called the most dramatic player he's ever played with. There's no bump or bruise with Joel Embiid. It's horrific injury. There's no charge call. It's a blatant truck running you over and flailing his arms. Like everything is a showmanship. The showmanship of Joel Embiid is off the charts. Dramatic, as J.J. Redick said. Marcus goes more down that alley. And one of the things I'll point out from the article, specifically before we talk to Marcus, is the term performance art. I wrote it down. When Marcus is talking about in the article Joel Embiid's leadership, he references that the team themselves did not know if Joel Embiid was going to be available for Game 3, let alone Game 4. Did not know Joel Embiid was going to be available for Game 3 of the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Miami Heat until 30 minutes before game time. That's not leadership. That's performance art. That means I'm doing it for vanity. My words there, not Marcus Hayes', vanity. That Joel Embiid, it's not a question of toughness. Like he's going to be out there. He's going to be playing. That's great. But if you are going to play, you need to show up and play hard. And he felt as if, and Marcus Hayes isn't the only person. I talked about Shaq referencing it. I talked about Charles Barkley referencing it. I think if you're playing with a broken orbital bone, it's a lot more up to your teammates to step up than it is for you to try to step up. I thought he gave you what he could. But apparently this is still going to be questioned for Joel Embiid until the bottom line happens. Until he makes it out of the second round of the playoffs, until he makes it to a conference championship, until he makes it to an NBA Finals, and ultimately wins an NBA championship. The toughness, the choke factor, the durability, the stamina, the endurance, the in shape, the diet, whatever it might be. All of that will be questioned with Joel Embiid until even if he wins an MVP, all of that will be questioned until he achieves the ultimate goal. And it needs to happen with him playing at a very high level. The level we have seen him play at for entire regular seasons. But what we have seen over the last 2 years has been the most talented version we have seen of Joel Embiid. He's gotten to the playoffs, and whether it's 2019 against the Toronto Raptors in that series that ended with the quadruple doink. He can't miss games with an illness. He can't miss games with a knee injury. He can't be hurt against the Atlanta Hawks like he was last year. He can't get bounced out in the bubble in the first round of the playoffs like he did against the Celtics with no Ben Simmons. These are all things that need to come together for Joel Embiid. And when he gets to that stage again, he needs to make sure that he performs regardless of injury in that on that stage and make sure that he can carry this team to at least an Eastern Conference final. Because if he does not, the questions will remain. The questions I thought we were all done with. I thought play with a broken face, you're good to go. But according to Marcus Hayes' article, Joel Embiid's got me. He's got me good. It's all checks notes, performance art. We'll talk to Marcus Hayes coming up in just a second. But let me tell you right now about Destination Retirement at destinationretirement.com. My man, Mike Seibert. Need to contact Mike Seibert. He's a certified income professional at Destination Retirement, LLC, and a partner of 1847 Financial and an advisor for Eagles, Sixers, and Phillies fans only. Maybe next year, the Flyers as well. But when it comes to long-term savings, why are you giving up the current enjoyment of your income? The answer is to have income streams in retirement. It only makes sense then to understand how retirement income streams work so that you can direct savings in ways that give you the highest income when you retire. Think of it like climbing a mountain. When you go up the mountain, you got to get to the top. But then you also got to get safely back down the mountain. Going up the mountain, those are your accumulation years. Going back down the mountain, those are your distribution years. These are the two different phases of your financial life, and each should be addressed separately. Also, when you're saving for college, for your kids' education as well, don't let that affect your retirement savings in a negative way. Let Mike show you an efficient way to help save for your kids' college and still retire on your own terms. The first step, free advice right here. First step, avoid starting your growth cycle over by depleting accounts like 529s for big expenses like college. You don't want to lose your position on your growth cycle for retirement and have to start over. You can't get that time back. Instead, set yourself up with the ability to use vehicles that you can take money out of without starting your growth cycle over again. Find out how your annual retirement savings can help your college savings, how your college savings can help your retirement savings. Let Mike show you. Mike will open up a portal for you, a retirement analyzer. Then you can use that software to help you navigate through the different phases of your financial life. For questions or to set up a meeting with Mike, email him at gobirds@1847financial.com or call his office at 484 275-6035. That's 484-275-6035. You can also visit his website at destinationretirement.com. And as always, go Birds. Let me tell you about Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right there on Jewelers Row, or online at IHateStevenSinger.com. Here's what people actually love about Steven Singer. Here's what the customer loves about Steven Singer. They walk in, they know they're going to get taken care of at the other corner of 8th and Walnut. And how do they know that? Because they're getting the perfect price. Here's why other jewelers hate Steven Singer. Because they mark things way up just to mark it down in front of you, just to make you feel like you saved a couple of bucks. At Steven Singer, you don't got to worry about negotiating. You don't got to ask for a lower price because you're getting that lower price. The person next to you is paying the same price, that same low, perfect price every single time compared to what other jewelers are marking way up in front of you just to be like, I know, I'll really get them with this. Save $500. Oh, yeah, I'll take $500 off. Hey, guess what? It's already marked up $1,500. So what are you really winning there? When you talk to Steven Singer, you're getting the perfect price every single time. Not just the perfect price, but you're getting the perfect price from a real jewelry expert who will walk you through all the beautiful, sparkling, dazzling diamond inventory that they have. So if it's somebody's birthday, a push present, an anniversary, whatever it is, that special day for that special someone, you get the perfect price every day at Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, the perfect price every day. And online at IHateStevenSinger.com. Always fast and free shipping at IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's jump on the Roth and Orthopedics guest line. We'll talk to our friend Marcus Hayes about all things Joel Embiid and the future of the 10-9-8 76ers. On the Roth and Orthopedics guest line from Inquirer.com, Marcus Hayes. What's up, Marcus?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Are you settling in at home now? You're on the road a lot. You're traveling. You're bebopping all over the place. Now you're settling down a little bit.
Yeah, the last part of the month of May into probably July is when all the sports writers recharge from the spring training, Final Four, spring training again, Masters. And then if your winter teams are in the playoffs, that goes, if you're lucky, it goes into June. But the Sixers have kept me out of June for several years now.
Then you got the draft thrown in there too. It's all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, it's funny. The last few years with the Sixers, their playoff situation, more than a handful of times, with the exception of COVID, I have had to make sure I've had my passport because I'm about to travel out of the country and go, man, if the Sixers make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm going to be screwed. And then they fall short, and I'm still disappointed nonetheless. But, Marcus, I wanted to have you on today because I read your article, and I will say it really makes you think. If you haven't seen it yet, check Marcus out on Twitter. Obviously, you can see this article. You can read this article, and it really makes you think because, Marcus, I've argued with my friends, family, other Sixers fans, many people about Joel Embiid, and I think that from where he started out to where he is now, becoming a father, as you point out in the article, as you and I have discussed before, becoming Arthur's dad has really made him mature at a very rapid pace. And I think he has kind of settled into more of that veteran role than we have ever seen him since becoming a dad. But your article points out a lot of flaws that he still has in his game to continue to grow.
Well, I found that him becoming a father set him up for success at coming out of fatherhood, coming out of like the worst of COVID. So 2020, 2021, I found him to be kind of a different guy. Okay, look, I'm going to get my rest. I'm going to eat better. He doesn't drink, allegedly. And he's got a fiance. So with him, it was just mostly sort of becoming a little bit more responsible at home. That was a big first step. The next step, I thought, was when he was injured in 2021, he fought through that because he wanted to win the MVP. He wanted to play as many games as he could, so he didn't take any games off, no load management. He played on a bad knee to chase the MVP, and he set himself up for success the next season because, he played 50, 51 games or whatever it was, and that just clearly wasn't enough last year. But this year I thought he played enough games, was the MVP, and that's kind of where his maturity stopped, though. There's another level of maturity. There's another level of responsibility. And that's what Shaq and Charles were talking about in 2019 when he missed a game because he had a virus and an upper respiratory infection against Toronto. They just could not conceive of missing a game because they felt sick. Now, both of these men, both Shaq and Charles, and I mentioned them because they're the halftime show, they're the post-game show, they're the arbiters, and they're big men whose team's offenses were built around, and defense too in Shaq's case. They could not conceive of letting an illness let down their team that way. And that's the thing that offended them most with Joel in Toronto. And yes, Joel Embiid this year played with a fractured orbital bone, and he played with a torn thumb ligament. That's wonderful. That's heroic. If he plays as hard as he can, if he stays in shape when he's healing from the orbital fracture and the concussion. He did not stay in shape. He was in horrendous shape when he showed up for games 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if you're playing, okay, you don't get graded on a my thumb hurts curve. You don't get graded on I wear a mask so I don't have peripheral vision curve. You get graded on did you play well or not. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, nobody's going to see an asterisk in his playoff stat line from 2021, 2022 saying, and he was a little bit hurt or he was gravely hurt or whatever. They're going to see that, once again, he produced less in the playoffs than he did in the regular season, which is exactly the opposite of Tim Duncan, Shaq, and Hakeem Olajuwon, who are his comps.
Now, that's kind of where the article got me, because when I'm watching him play in this second round series against the Heat, and he's got the orbital bone fracture, and you see his impact in games 2 and games 3 and 4, and then in 5, it looked like everyone just was done playing, everybody. And my thought was, you're getting this leadership from Joel Embiid, where he's trying to play through these injuries, and nobody else is having his back. That's how I took it. You're saying this is more of a, I hate to go vanity, to use my word, vanity more so than it is trying to motivate a team?
No, I think he thinks he did the best he could. I don't think he realizes that there's another level that great players reach despite adversity, that real warriors, real heroes, they produce when they're wounded. And they produce. They don't say, I was wounded and I gave it my best shot. They say, I was wounded and I overcame. That's the difference in the legacies. And maybe he's just not that guy. That doesn't make him a bad guy, but getting, one of the things that Tobias Harris said, and it's funny, we're talking about Tobias Harris, who was probably the most polarizing Sixer outside of Ben Simmons over the last 4 or 5 years, not necessarily because he's done anything, but what he hasn't done and who he isn't. He's not Jimmy Butler, right? Right. So one of the things Tobias Harris said was, when we faced adversities this year, we sometimes let them get the better of us. He did not exclude Joel Embiid. I mean, George Niang played hurt, okay, in the semi. George Niang shot 50% from 3 in the first round. And we didn't talk about George Niang's knee. all we talked about was how hurt Joel Embiid was. Tobias's point, I think, is everybody's hurt. Everybody's got stuff going on. Joel might be more hurt, but that doesn't mean Joel shouldn't get down in the post. That doesn't mean he shouldn't run end to end. That doesn't mean he should stay upright. That doesn't mean he should be able to play at 80% effort. And that's the thing that was most damning. He said it'd be one thing if we played at 100% effort, but we didn't. And he did not exclude his center.
True, very true. From Tobias Harris, absolutely.
Let's be honest. Probably was the best Sixer in the playoffs.
He was certainly the most consistent. Yeah, absolutely.
That might be a whole different show. Like, is Tobias Harris the best version of Tobias Harris we will ever see right now, because he took it upon himself to play great defense at the cost of everything else against Pascal Siakam against the Raptors? Has he discovered something about himself? Maybe he's the leader he's talking about the Sixers need.
I felt for a long time that Tobias Harris was the leader in the locker room, even with Joel Embiid still becoming mature and Ben Simmons still. It felt like Tobias Harris was the more veteran voice in that room. Do you think that's still the case, or do you think it's all Joel Embiid now?
He was always the grown-up, but you cannot have a leader in the locker room when Joel Embiid exists and calls himself the process and talks about being the best player on the floor. You can't have someone like, if they had PJ Tucker, who's I think a great leader, Marcus Smart, who I think is a great leader, in that locker room, there would have been friction with Joel Embiid because he can't allow anyone else to be a leader, and he's not a very good leader himself. Leadership is about two things. Leadership is about setting an example as the best professional you can be. That's what Tobias Harris is. That's the kind of leadership he has. It also is not saying I'm the best player, so let's feed me and go off. What it is I'm the best player. I'm going to make you better. I'm going to improve you. I'm going to take care of all the little stuff, and you're going to be able to count on me. That's the opposite of what Joel Embiid does and is, and that's the thing that needs to change. He has to understand that he might be the most important person in the locker room, but that only means that he has to make everyone else feel and act and be important.
Understood. When it comes to his overall talent level, are you someone that did have him as the MVP or the runner-up or top three? Where did you have Joel Embiid in terms of MVP? I
had him as the MVP last year. If you look back, I think it was Walton in the 70s, played 50 games and won the MVP. Yeah. And that's my litmus test. If it happens once, it can happen again. But Nikola Jokic, if advanced metrics didn't exist, I don't think you would have the Nikola Jokic argument, because, Joel Embiid, it's not Joel Embiid's fault that two of Jokic's teammates were gone.
Right.
You can argue because two of his teammates were gone, his stats were inflated because he had to do more, which he was able to do and did it well. But you can't find me a general manager in the NBA who, everybody starts their team with Giannis, but then it's Joel, because Joel is a generational defensive player. He really is. And Jokic just isn't. He's not that good defensively, and he doesn't give you enough offensively to compensate for, let's be honest, 35% of the game, 30% of the game, because that's what defense is. Rudy Gobert isn't worth what Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic are
sure.
worth.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the rest of this team, James Harden coming back, opting in for $47 million. Obviously looks like Doc Rivers is coming back now as well. What does this team need? What do they need to do to make changes in order to try to finally get past that second round of the playoffs?
They need depth, and they need heart, and they need, rebounding, and and what they really need is the players you talked about to make a step. I don't think you're ever going to get a better version of Tobias Harris. There's a lot better version of Joel Embiid to be had out there. You need James Harden to be fit and healthy. He says his hamstring has bothered him for 2 full seasons, and those 2 seasons were seasons in transition with different teams. So, and you need, Tyrese Maxey to be consistent, to demand the ball, to be that third star, because they've got 3.5 if he becomes a star, because Tobias Harris is kind of an all-star. Tyrese Maxey needs to be a better defender. He needs to be a better decision maker, and he needs to command the ball more. And that amplifies everyone. They have a really good core. Those 4 guys are so good that you can afford to have Matisse Thybulle on the court, disrupting defensively. But it really doesn't, for me, it really doesn't matter what happens as far as depth goes, unless those 5 guys, well, 4 guys, I'll take Tobias out because I think he's where he needs to be, unless those 4 guys change and become different players. And Embiid's going to be 29 years old next year. Harden's going to be 33. We've seen players age gracefully and sort of change their game. We saw Michael Jordan change his game. There's no reason James Harden can't change his game to become a better, more invested defender and rebounder, and a better, more invested and efficient point guard. There's no reason. There's no reason Joel Embiid can't become more dominant defensively and on the boards. One of the big reasons he's not as dominant defensively and on the boards is because he's tired all the time, And, of course, Matisse Thybulle needs to develop a 3-ball. That's it. That's all he needs to do to become a 10-year starter in the NBA. And Tyrese Maxey needs to develop a mid-range jumper, not a runner, a jumper. And he needs to be able to defend on the perimeter efficiently. He doesn't need to be a great perimeter defender, but he can't be a pylon.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with that as well. Last thing for you, I'm confused by Doc Rivers coming back. I know there's a lot of money tied up, which should really sum up any confusion, or eliminate any confusion. But it just didn't seem like him and this locker room were meshing well at the end of this year. Were you surprised that Doc Rivers is making a return?
I'm surprised that Doc Rivers wants to come back. I'm not surprised that he's been retained. The people running the organization love names. Daryl Morey loves names. Josh Harris loves names. You're not going to get a bigger name in here who's a good coach than Doc Rivers. And Doc Rivers, if nothing else, he's a good coach. Maybe not a great coach. He's a good coach. I mean, the Mike D'Antoni, flirtation with me was always just ridiculous. Mike D'Antoni is probably the most overrated coach in the history of the NBA. And this is a team that needs to be better defensively and be a better rebounding team. That's the opposite of what Mike D'Antoni believes in. It's just that simple. So I'm not surprised that Doc was retained. I'm a little bit more surprised that Doc allowed himself to stay. And I was wrong about that. I thought Doc wanted out, and he probably could have gotten out. But, I'm thinking about writing a devil's advocate column next week that says if you subtract Doc's attitude and the 3 or 4 times where he's attacked the press and the fans, and you just clinically evaluate the job he did with the teams he's had, with Ben Simmons, who is a catastrophe 2 places now, with James Harden diminished by a hamstring and being incorporated into a team that was already here, and you subtracted 2 major parts. Doc Rivers didn't do a bad job absent his blow-ups with the media. He's very, very difficult to like right now, but you should be able to at least respect the job that he did just looking at the job. And, they lost a series. They played 33% of the series without their number 1 player. And they lost, 4 of those 6 games. And last year he had I don't mean this to be politically incorrect, but, and it's going to sound bad, but he lost a series with a mental case playing point guard for him. A guy who is sent to become, a self-described mental case.
I mean, even at the end of that series, remember Ben Simmons said he needed to get his mental right. Right.
So all those things, if you want to blame Doc for putting Ben in that position, okay. If you want to say he misused James Harden and didn't utilize Joel Embiid well enough, fine. He had 25 games. They had 4 practices with James Harden set between the time he was acquired and the playoffs, and then they had 5 more. So they had 9 practices all year with James Harden. So I don't think Doc necessarily did a bad job as a coach as far as coaching the team goes. Could he have been better with us? Could he have been a better messenger? Could he have been? Did that affect the team? Those are all fair points and arguments as well. But I don't think Doc did anything to warrant his firing on the sideline.
Understood. Gotcha. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to read this article. It at least makes you think about Joel Embiid and the future of the 76ers as it hinges on him, his leadership, and his toughness as well. So make sure you check out this article written by our friend here, Marcus Hayes, Inquirer.com. Marcus, always great catching up with you, man. I really appreciate it. And again, Joel Embiid, I have looked at as a guy that has matured a lot, but this article has made me think about what his future holds if he doesn't take that next step forward.
we can all mature more, right?
So true. So true. Marcus Hayes, Inquirer.com, joining us on the Rothman Orthopedics Guest Line. Thanks, Marcus.
My pleasure.
My thanks to Marcus Hayes joining us on the Rothman Orthopedics Guest Line, of course. I find it interesting. And here's the thing. Marcus, and I was just talking to PJ during the break here, and I think he summed it up actually really well. Marcus takes a less traveled road than a lot of other people. And sometimes, and here's what I'll say, sometimes that can be identified as a hot take. Sometimes that can be identified as clickbait. Marcus Hayes, and I've known him for years, I don't think he ever goes the hot take route. I don't think he ever goes the clickbait route intentionally, like in terms of, oh, he's just doing that for clicks. No, Marcus has watched something, broken it down in his head, and said, this is the way to be. Like, Marcus is one of those people that couldn't listen to the radio, the TV, digital media, read somebody else. But he doesn't care what anybody else is saying. This is what I think. Boom, deal with it. And sometimes that goes with the current of a lot of people's thinking, and sometimes it goes against the current. Most of the time, that goes against the current of what a lot of other people are thinking. I still can't question the man's toughness with Joel Embiid. You step on a professional playing surface in any sport, I don't care what sport it is, and you go be a professional athlete with a broken face, I'm going to go ahead and say that you're pretty tough. You get off a concussion and you go play immediately, I'm going to go say that you really want to win. You play and figure out a way to play with the torn ligaments in your thumb, I'm going to go ahead and say you're tough. That's what I believe. If you played through the torn meniscus last year, I'm going to go ahead and say you're tough. When it comes to the illness that we got into from the Toronto series, I think it was gastroenteritis that Joel Embiid had. That we could question toughness. But since he became a father, and a lot of people have pointed to this, Marcus has pointed to it, I pointed to it, a lot of the people have pointed to it. Joel Embiid has changed a lot as a player, as a human being, in terms of taking a huge, giant leap forward in maturity since becoming a father. And it does happen to people. This is the first I've ever seen it so unbelievably highlighted with one particular player like it has been with Joel Embiid, and it's because he himself has mentioned it time and time again. He wants to show Arthur that he could be the best basketball player that he could possibly be. His son, Arthur, he could be the best possible basketball player he could be, and he wants to set a standard one day for Arthur, which is beautiful. That's great. But the other side of it is the showmanship aspect of it. If I play, in the back of my mind, maybe I'm not just thinking about how great it would be if I played and how much better the team would be, but I'm also thinking about how other people would think about it. Oh my God, they'll think I'm great. They'll think I'm this hero. They'll think I'm this, I have this toughness gene, and they'll say all these great things. And I think Marcus's overall point is the showmanship's great, but the product has to produce. The process has to produce. And if you keep underachieving, regardless of injury in the playoffs, as Marcus says, no one's going to look at an asterisk next to your season and go, oh, well, that's when Joel Embiid had the broken face. So, all right, push that aside. What else you got? Well, he's going to be 29 years old. 29 years old, has never even made it to a conference final. Bottom line, 29 years old, always the bridesmaid, never the bride as an MVP. Here's my goal for Joel Embiid. I want him to be healthy. Let's get that out of the way, okay? But I never want to hear about an MVP award from him. If he gets asked about it, which he will next season at some point, if it goes at all like the last couple of seasons, he'll get asked about it at some point. I don't want to hear, I guess they hate me if he loses the MVP. I don't want to hear about, hey, the MVP race, what's going on with the MVP? I don't want to hear about, whatever. I don't want to hear any of it. I want to hear him answer questions about the MVP award. I certainly don't want to hear him initiate it, but I want to hear him answer questions with, I don't care about that. I need to get to a finals. I need to win a championship. That's when I think we'll see the final step forward from Joel Embiid. When all the talk about MVP awards, Defensive Player of the Year awards, all that other stuff goes out the window, and the only thing he is focused on, the only prize that he's focused on, the only hardware he is focused on is the ultimate hardware, the Larry O'Brien trophy. That's it. Anytime he gets asked about an MVP award from this point on, Hey, you know what? That's not for me to decide. I just have to play my hardest trying to win a championship. That's it. Practice that phrase like you're the Manchurian Candidate. There's the kindest, warmest, gentlest man I've ever met. Practice that line and just repeat it like you've been hypnotized. I don't care about the MVP award. I'm just trying to win a championship. If that's what happens, great. But my goal is the Larry O'Brien Trophy. That's it. That's all I want to hear from Joel Embiid. No more Defensive Player of the Year. No more individual accolades. It's time to win. I can't believe I'm saying this already, but a true 7-footer with a long history of injuries, 29 next year, he ain't going to get much better than he is right now. The mentality can get better. The overall talent is pretty damn good. But 29 years old, long injury history, has been through a lot in his career. He is getting up there in years. Joel Embiid is getting up there in years. I know a lot of people like to wait till 30, 31, 32 to even reference that. But when you talk about the injuries of this guy, I don't think it's too soon to reference that. Next year, you're talking about 29-year-old. Okay. I don't want to hear about any MVPs. I don't want to hear about any Defensive Player of the Year. I don't want to hear any of that. I just want to hear about a championship. And I think that would turn a lot of heads from the voters around the league. He doesn't have to be disrespectful. He doesn't have to say that they hate me. He doesn't have to do anything like that. If I win a championship and that happens in the process, then albeit. That's great. Then I'm all for it. Whatever. That's how it has to be with Joel Embiid. Done with the individual stuff. What has that gotten him? Hey, has it been motivation over the last 2 years? Sure, it's been motivation. But I think Marcus's overall point is that's great that you're playing. That's not true toughness. That's not true leadership. The true leadership is you showing up and being the best player. He wasn't that. I said before in the blowout of Game 4, Maxey went off for you. Excuse me. Game 3, Maxey went off for you. Game 4, James Harden went off for you in the fourth quarter. Joel Embiid played well. He didn't play MVP well, but he played well. Other guys came in and helped you close it out. Initially, his first game back, I thought that was great juice for the rest of the team. They got it going, man. They were supporting their guy. The rest of the way, Joel Embiid needed a lot of help, and you should never look at your own MVP, regardless if it's a runner-up in the league MVP or it's your team MVP in Joel Embiid. Regardless of that, you got to show up for him and realize that, guys, he's trying to fight for you. He's just trying to be out there and be a presence to motivate you a little bit. And that's where I will give him the credit. And apparently this didn't work. And Joel Embiid can't just show up and look like he looked, especially in Game 5 and 6. As banged up as he was, if he's out there on the court, the bottom line is people are always going to remember it as, oh, well, they lost. And they haven't made it to a conference finals yet for him. Oh, he played with a broken orbital bone? Cool. That'll go by the wayside so unbelievably fast. Now, for me, here's where I'm at, just to not lose that confusion. I believe Joel Embiid's a tough SOB. I believe you step out on that court, that surface of play, you're a pretty tough guy. I, however, don't ignore the idea that he does think about the vanity of the situation, how this is all going to look. Oh, I'm so tough because I played like this. But you still have to perform when you go out there. I don't question the man's toughness anymore. I don't question the man. I don't say he's soft, and I know that was a big thing. And my main conclusion at the end of that series was let it never be said again that Joel Embiid is soft. Because you go out there and play with those injuries, you're a tough SOB. Charles Barkley questioned it immediately. Marcus Hayes questioned it on Sunday in the Inquirer. So we wanted to discuss it. I wanted to discuss it on this show and see if people are still out there questioning it. If you question his intent, if you question his toughness, if you question his endurance, his leadership, apparently the question is still out there. So there you go. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, about the great people at Rothman Orthopedics. When you have an orthopedic issue, you need a physician who eats, sleeps, and breathes orthopedics. You need an exceptionally specialized Rothman Orthopedics physician. They not only specialize in orthopedics, but each doctor specializes in one area of the body, which means you have a specialist in that area, which means you can have the confidence to get past the pain and be what you were. Visit them, one of their 30-plus locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, including 4 orthopedic-only urgent cares. Learn more at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. Let me tell you about Freestone Farm CBD. They may have trouble sleeping at night. Maybe you want to have a quick recovery after a workout, make you feel better, relax you a little bit. CBD from Freestone Farms is the way to go. I'm sure you've tried a lot of different brands, but honestly, Freestone Farms CBD is amazing. It's great after working out, great to help you put you to sleep. Whatever you need it, it's great. I'll tell you, this thing is fantastic. These are just unreal. This is what's more exciting. FreestoneFarmCBD.com. That's FreestoneFarmCBD.com. You can check out the whole menu, and it's something that you'll absolutely have to see. The new strains like their insane tropical Bayox that clocks into the chart-topping 24.1%, and Super CBD, which is half Hindu Kush 21%. These genetics are off the charts. They also grow their own premium hemp flower in the Garden State. Look at that, locally sourced with all organic inputs and IPM. There's absolutely nothing synthetic from jar to jar. It's a farm to jar type of deal. After harvest, they carefully preserve all the plant compounds with a perfect 3-month cure. Just one look and smell is enough to know it's CBD done right. And that's the great product and the right product for you. Oh, and did I mention 20% off at checkout with promo code Farzy? Did I mention 20% off from Freestone Farm CBD? 20% off your CBD from Freestone Farm CBD when you use promo code Farzy upon checkout. That's promo code Farzy at FreestoneFarmCBD.com. How about PHL Sports Station, Philadelphia Sports Station, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience with all social media and blogs? That's PHLSportsStation.com. Let's jump into the chat check. I had a really busy weekend. I missed you guys so much. Let's start it off at the top here. Good morning, April. How are you? Mally, what's popping? Kevin, what's going on? April, hello again. Mally, Kevin, Mally, Benny, Dan, what's going on? Mally, no, Marcus, the great Cliff Lee once said, that's baseball. Was there anything more? Like, I found that so infuriating. Like, you ever get into an argument with somebody and you're yelling and you're really angry and they just maintain this kind of tone, this kind of like, this obviously means a lot more to you than it does to me type of tone? That's infuriating. When Cliff Lee, in the rare occasion that you get rocked, I'm just trying to throw up zeros, and you have an inning like the 5th inning, or you allowed 6 runs, that's baseball. Cool. Thanks. Anyway. Darian, tell Marcus Hayes I question his journalistic integrity. See, here's the thing. It's unfair for me because vast majority of the readers don't know the person writing the story. I know Marcus. I don't question his journalistic integrity. I think he puts on paper or in print, in media, what he really believes, what he truly thinks. And that's his opinion. That's what makes him unique. That's what I believe makes him good at his job. Yes, good at his job. A lot of people disagree with it, which draws a lot of attention to it. Like I said, I don't question Joel Embiid's toughness. I just question whether or not he'll ever get this team over the hump to at least an Eastern Conference Finals and maybe later down the line to a championship. Because he's not wrong in saying Joel Embiid needs to be better for this team to win a championship. I don't even think that's an opinion. I think that's a statement of fact. He does need to be better. I think part of that has to be he has to be healthy. I don't think there's any amount of training you could do to avoid Pascal Siakam elbowing you in the face and breaking an orbital bone. A lot of it comes down to luck. And one thing I will say about Doc Rivers, when he says it's hard to win, I know that's like the most general, greatest understatement you could possibly make, with Doc Rivers. But he's right, because you need so much luck to go your way. Joel Embiid getting a broken face doesn't help this team win. Darian, hello again. Also, why do the Phillies change their logo? I love the P. Hate the bell as the logo. Yeah, I saw that. I don't mind it too much. It doesn't bother me. By the way, speaking of doesn't bother me, I was going to do this in the morning rush, but I'll just say it right now in case people want to chime in on the chat. I watched the end of Ozark. Love the show. It's one of my favorite all-time shows. It's a great show. I didn't have a problem with the ending. Before I got to it, and by the way, kudos to everyone on social media. I didn't see anybody tweet a spoiler. I just saw people tweet their opinion. Good, bad, pass, fail, or nice try, Ozark, whatever. I didn't have a problem with the ending. I liked it. I thought it rounded it out well. And I suggest this. If you do watch the ending and you don't like it, watch Remembering Ozark, like it's like a 30-minute documentary, like a rap show, basically, on the actors, how the show came together, and all this other stuff. And that's great. That'll give you some nice closure as well. But I will say, I didn't have a problem with the way the show ended. In big shows like that, I almost expect it to end in that way. The best finale, though, I will say, I think Breaking Bad was a great finale. I know a lot of people from years past have Sopranos, like the terrible ending. I didn't have a problem. I thought it was great. I will say Game of Thrones was the worst ending to anything in the history of humanity in television. That was awful. Game of Thrones was terrible. Game of Thrones ending was so bad that, like, I have no good feelings about watching Game of Thrones. Like, there's no, like, it eliminated any of the good vibes of the previous 8 seasons. That's how bad it was. But what'd you think? If you watched Ozark, no spoilers. I was fine with the ending. Dan Schwartz, Mark is a pretty smart dude, though. Sorry to play devil's advocate. I'm not saying I agree with all that he says. Okay, Dan, I think you're on the same page as me. It's like you don't agree with him, but you see his point of view. You see more so what he's arguing as opposed. He's not saying Joel Embiid sucks and they need to trade him. He's saying he still needs to be better. Regardless of injuries, he needs to be better. I can't question that man's toughness at all. And by the way, when Marcus posted the story, I was reading some of the comments, and one of the comments was like, imagine questioning his toughness after that. Another one was, I'd like to see Marcus Hayes go out there and play with a broken face. Just know this. If your solution or your response to any journalist writing a story or speaking about a subject, like in my case, let's see Mark Farzy go out there and play with a broken face. Okay, I am not a professional athlete. All this is done in the caveat that you guys know I didn't play, at least professionally. I mean, I did have the one game with the Harlem Globetrotters, but, I don't like to brag. I didn't play professionally. I'm like most of you. I played in high school. I played in grade school. I played pickup games of basketball. I never played professionally and certainly didn't play in college. I'm not the athlete you want out there. So don't nominate me to go out there and play. My job is not to critique how the everyman would play. My job is to critique how a guy who's supposed to be an MVP of the league plays in a series. Like, so you go out there and even try to run a lap. No, you wouldn't like to see it. Do you really want to see this? I gotta go to the hospital. Like, do you want to see that? If you want to see that, you're sick, man. Anyway, like, so you go out there and run up and down the court 50 times. Really? That's your idea of something you'd want to see? That's me. That, for the people on the podcast, what you heard there was not an asthma attack. That was me acting as if I was running laps. Asthma attack comes after the show when I haven't hit my inhaler in an hour. Anyway, Alora, what else do we got here? PJ and Mark, can this please be the last time Marcus Hayes is on the show? He is a high killer. Sorry, Mally. Don't let me ruin your buzz, bruh. Sean Gillespie, good morning, Sean. What's going on? Darian, what's going on? Sean, Odubel is trying for baseball's version of the Harlem Globetrotters. You know what? I just saw it on Twitter, actually. Let me see. No, I'm not going to find it. I'll retweet it later if you haven't seen it. He swings at the pitch between his legs. Ray. Oh, Ray. What's up, bud? Sixers problem. They have no tough guy that does all the dirty work. They're not very athletic. All right, so you want like a PJ Tucker? Because before I didn't want PJ Tucker. Now I really want PJ Tucker. Because PJ Tucker, he's that guy. I either want to see PJ Tucker or everyone talks about Matisse Thybulle learning how to hit a three. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, but I also want to see Matisse Thybulle put on 40 pounds. Can you imagine Matisse Thybulle as like a bruising PJ Tucker type guy? Like, he's got defense ability and but he loses quickness, blah, blah, blah. But man, could you imagine him like a PJ Tucker? Good God, y'all. Dan Schwartz, they need shooters. They absolutely do need shooters. Oh, Ray Fitzgerald saying the kind of center Miami has. Bam Adebayo, man. He'll rock your house, bro. NBA world will rally around Horford winning a ring. Jimmy J. Wow. Yeah. Al Horford, the quarter was put in that machine in the series. That's for damn sure with Al Horford. And look, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't hate Al Horford. And I know Anna Horford, his sister, gets all over Philly for like hating her brother. I don't feel like we hated Al Horford. I feel like we more so just thought Ben Simmons and Al Horford were a bad mix because you couldn't have Al Horford clogging up the lane with Ben Simmons trying to drive the lane all the time. So that for me, I thought was always a miscommunication between a lot of people, or a misunderstood situation, I should say. Scott Pollock, what's up, man? How you doing? Darian, hello again. Jack, what's going on? Wrath of Kala. What's up, Wrath of Kala? Every championship team needs an enforcer. That's who they need. Shine 101 says they need like a PJ Tucker or Marcus Smart. I'd be down with that, man. Love those guys. Can't stand the opinion. Can't stand Marcus Hayes' opinion. Dan, what's going on? Destination requirement. Gentis, Marcus Hayes hates any player with talent. Bob Charlie, what's up, bud? There is no way Seth Curry goes back. Oh, wait, goes back to Philly? You don't think? I think Seth Curry would come back to Philly. Mally, Mark's facial expressions while talking to Marcus say it all. I don't believe you, Marcus. Where's my bong? Mally, that was one of your best ones right there. I don't think we were wearing the same shirt, Dan. I don't think Marcus Hayes and I were wearing the same shirt. Shrine. Tavita, am I saying it right? Tavita, good morning to you. Nice to have you in. April, hello again. Gentis, what's going on? See, because it's a big name, people. Thibault is the worst offensive wing in the NBA. The whole lack of a three thing is tough. The reason I wanted him in the starting five over Danny Green during the season was because he at least cut to the basket, and that was fine for me. If he was going to give you great defense, which he did, and cut to the basket, gets points that way, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I still think he was a better option than Danny Green in your starting five. In the playoffs, though, I think Doc Rivers made the right call. I don't think you could have had Danny Green start in Toronto, have Thibault start at home, and then vice versa. I think you needed to have one starting five in the playoffs. Tavita, say what you want about Tobias. He was the only one consistent during the playoffs, and he really stepped up when it counted. Tavita, I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Jack Ewing's talking about the money aspect of it. Yeah, that it is what it is with Harris. But here's the thing. Yes, the money can always be frustrating. That will be a constant. But I don't let the money, especially if you have two other players that are better, supposedly, and they're not stepping up either, then I don't get as mad as Tobias. If Tobias Harris was brought in here to be the guy, okay, here's the famous the guy, then I'd be really pissed at him signing that contract and not performing. But he signed that contract, and he's got Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey as an up-and-comer. So I don't mind Tobias Harris being more of a background guy. Are you paying a lot for that background? Yes, you are. But Tobias Harris, like, this team will not go the way of Tobias Harris. This team only goes the way of Joel Embiid. So that's why I take a little bit more pressure off Tobias Harris than most people throw on him. Because, yes, that contract is awful for us. However, Tobias Harris as a basketball player, I don't judge him as harshly as others because he's not supposed to be the guy. He's supposed to have three other guys maybe on this team be the guy. But I do love what he did in the playoffs defensively speaking. I thought offensively he stepped up in some big games as well. So that's what I'll give you there. Jim Grassmeter, facts, Farzy, stop talking about wanting to win things, start producing. There you go, Jim. I agree with you. Real time, it doesn't matter what any of these athletes say. It's all about the court production. Marcus Hayes hung up on words. Sixers need a bench. Everything else is fluff. See, I think the Sixers need another key acquisition in their starting five. I think they need some sort of dead shooter scorer. Because James Harden has always been a volume shooter. I never call him a dead shooter. Like dead on, he's the guy that's going to consistently shoot 4 from 8 from beyond the arc. It's not happening. That's not his game. Mahoney King, as long as you keep Harden, you'll never win a championship. Well, there is that too. Somebody said James Harden ran up the bleachers after his 5th game here and never been right since. Tavita, I remember that. Mally, what's going on? Scott Pollock, Farzy, go for 4 hours. Hey, I'm about 10 minutes over right now, so that's like 4 hours. Scott, welcome in. Nice to have you. Mally, I never hated Al Horford, was more disappointed. There you go. Lincoln's Hawk, bring back hip-hop or Big Shot. Wait, please, is Lincoln Hawk, that wasn't the name of Sylvester Stallone in Over the Top, was it? The arm wrestling movie? That wasn't, was it Lincoln Hawk? I think it was Lincoln Hawk. Marquise Graham, Sixers need Beal. I would be all in on a Beal deal. Jim Grassmeter, did Tobias step up and score 30 plus in the playoffs? He was one of the main reasons why they were always out rebounded. I mean, I'm not really looking at, I don't know, maybe I just have a lower bar for Toby than most people. But I thought he gave you a hell of a lot. I think he gave you a hell of a lot more. Lincoln Hawk, yes, it was, and I am him. Lincoln Hawk was the name of Sylvester Stallone's character in the movie Over the Top. I'm going to go into a way too Norm Macdonald thing here, and it's flat out Norm Macdonald's. It's Norm Macdonald's line from Saturday Night Live in a great sketch. I love this sketch. And I actually tweeted something from this sketch once from Norm Macdonald, and he liked it. Norm Macdonald liked it. So no big deal. Norm Macdonald and I had a connection on Twitter. But in case you haven't seen the movie Over the Top, I'm shocked it hasn't won multiple Academy Awards. But Sylvester Stallone plays a truck driver who's a great arm wrestler, and he's got to win an arm wrestling tournament to get his son back. Hollywood producers sitting in a room. Hey, I had an idea for a movie. And they made that movie. If you ever have an idea for a movie, realize they have always made a worse movie than the idea you've had. Whatever your idea is, it's gold compared to whatever craptastic idea was thrown out there in a producer's meeting or a writer's room. Then Norm Macdonald said, yeah, because it combines the drama and heartache of a child custody battle with arm wrestling. Anyway, thanks to everybody right there. April, holy crap, I haven't thought about that movie in years. Hey, you never know what's going to happen when you step into Thunderdome, also known as the Chat Check. Let's jump in to our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. I mentioned it earlier, Dallas Mavericks 123-90 win over the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns scored 27 points in the first half of that game. Luka Doncic, 27 points in the first half of that game. In total, Luka dropped 35 on 12 of 19 shooting, 5 for 5 from the free throw line, 6 of 11 from beyond the arc. He had himself a nice little game. Boban Marjanovic played 3 minutes in that game, got himself a bucket. How about that? Bobby in the Western Conference Finals, so that's nice to see for Bobby. The Celtics took care of business against the Milwaukee Bucks, so there will be a brand new NBA championship. As the Boston Celtics eliminated the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday, 109-81. Jason Tatum. Folks, I know that there's this argument out there about Jason Tatum and how he was never available to the Sixers. Please stop that. And I see people get really passionate about this. He was never available. They were always going to take Markelle Fultz. If they were going to take Tatum, they wouldn't have made the trade. Here's why that's so wrong. For, well, 2 reasons. The first reason that I always say is because, stay with me here, Sixers had the number 1 pick. Tatum went number 3. They go down, if they would have, one comes before 3. So you had the pick of the litter. Jason Tatum was in the litter. You didn't take the litter. You didn't take Jason Tatum. You took Markelle Fultz. 1 comes before 3, mathematically. Now, The conspiracy theorists say Tatum was never available because in order to make that trade, they had to agree on who they were going to take. Really? So somewhere in writing, they have it where Tatum couldn't go number 1 to the Sixers, and Jerry Colangelo wasn't going to make that. Brian Colangelo wasn't going to make that trade unless he was taking Fultz number 1. Okay. So, no, there's nothing in writing. So that means there has to be a handshake deal, which means honor would have to be involved. If there's anything about Brian Colangelo that we know now, it's that he is not a man of honor. Ergo, Eric Jr. burner accounts. Ergo, him telling things to his wife. Ergo, his wife tweeting things out. I absolutely believe he knew about it, and I think he and his wife giggled about it at night. So, he's a man of honor. He can't go back on his word. If he says he's going to take Markelle Fultz, he's going to take Markelle Fultz. To hell with that. You're trying to win, damn it, and fleece an opponent in your division? Yeah, I think he could have done whatever the hell he damn wanted at that first pick. And he didn't take Tatum. And Tatum was available. You couldn't take it because there's agreed upon a deal is who you're going to draft. No, there wasn't. No way they make that trade if you take. Yeah? Well, they made it. Anyway. Drives me nuts. So anyway, Jason Tatum, 23 points last night. So that's fun. 5 of 9 from beyond the arc. So there you go. Boston advances to the Eastern Conference Finals to take on the Heat. One hockey note I will mention. Johnny Gaudreau, game-winning overtime goal for the Calgary Flames. They go on to the Western Conference semifinal. So good for them. That's nice to see. And Claude Giroux, Eastern Conference semifinal with the Florida Panthers taking care of business against the Capitals over the weekend as well. So congrats to Claude Giroux on that. Phillies back in action tomorrow night. As I said earlier in the show, they have won 6 of 8, so hopefully they'll continue their winning ways as they head to the San Diego Padres, who are like 12 games over 500 this season. So after Aaron Nola got the start, Phillies are going to name a starting pitcher, I believe, later today. It's a 6:45 start time as the Phillies now come back from their road trip to host the Padres. So we'll see what happens for the starter in that game. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That was The Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Jim Hyde, who produced the program, did a phenomenal job. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. It's the Farzy Show, presented by none other than Destination Retirement, and coming to you live every day from the Steven Singer Studios with the new live episode dropping every day at 6 a.m. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.